So should you look at Rotten Tomatoes to see if a movie is worth watching or not? So I did a full review on Glass Onion, a murder mystery, without looking at any of the Rotten Tomato reviews or reading them. I wanted to see if my opinion would be different than those reviews. I'm trying to find out if it's a waste of time to look at Rotten Tomatoes to see if you should watch a movie or not. If you guys haven't seen the movie, try this along with me. Maybe you don't have to write a full review, but I'd try it. I think it's interesting. So I don't know about you guys, but I've always found that movie reviews are pretty accurate. If I watch the movie and then look at the critic reviews, I feel like I would rate the movie similar to how the critic reviews were rated most of the time. What's funny is while picking this movie, I had to switch the movie I was going to talk about multiple times because I kept accidentally fucking seeing the reviews for the movie. Although I watched the movie before I saw the Rotten Tomato movie review of Glass Onion, I did see the fucking Netflix rating, which I think is like a 97 or it's something completely skewed. And usually Netflix doesn't really rate their movies well, I guess you can say. I went into watching Glass Onion without watching any trailers. I had literally never seen the first Knives Out movie. I didn't even know this was a sequel to that when I started watching this. I can't be the only one who likes watching movies without watching the trailers and knowing anything about the movie. Because I think, I don't know, it keeps you interested. God damn, the fucking sun is about to start glaring in my eyes. I do have one example of me just not really agreeing with Rotten Tomatoes. Like, why is Joker 70% on Rotten Tomatoes? This movie reviewer who talks about Joker talks about how the ending had nothing satisfying about it. I mean, you could look at it like the Joker was left in the dark, and maybe all of the chaos that happened will change Gotham. I kind of have to read this because it's so, these fucking movie reviews are like so weird. But anyways, so we see, for instance, anti-rich riots and protests around Gotham. To Joker, they're the same thing. But despite in such broad strokes as to be rendered completely meaningless, who are these people? What do they hope to achieve? Are their grievances legit? Or are they being jerks? Joker not only fails to ask these questions, it doesn't even seem capable of imagining them. I mean, I know what she's getting at, but obvious answer would be like they're a representation of the Joker. All these people are just going through the similar issues as Joker. She goes on to say, do you like the idea of Arthur committing a particularly disgusting crime? Great, you can assume he did and give Joker credit for being edgy enough to go there. Would you like him more if he didn't? Well, you're in luck because there's no proof that he actually went through with it. What? I don't even know what she's talking about. He literally committed like multiple crimes. I can't. I don't know. I guess the problem that people have with this movie is people can relate to the mental issues and things that the Joker and other characters went through in the movie. And it could incentivize violence because the action the characters took in the film was violence. And how it depicted people with mental illnesses as just all being violent when that isn't true. It's crazy to hear that the director of Joker at one point said that people were making movie reviews without actually watching the movie, saying that they don't even need to watch it. I mean, it's clear to me that like people who actually watched this movie, the audience review, gave it an 88%. I think it's actually higher than that personally. Making this video has made me realize that I've never actually really read the reviews. I've never actually really dove into the actual like critic reviews and read them. It's hard to judge something that is so detailed by just like a number. I feel like it just needs a lot of explaining. After I read my review of Glass Onion and Knives Out Mystery and give my thoughts and opinions about it, I will then give it a score. And then we will look at the Rotten Tomatoes score and we will compare it to mine. And then we will compare the critic reviews to my reviews. So to quickly talk about the shots, there was a lot of zoom shots on important details. And there are a lot of fast pan shots. I mean, one I can think of when they like fast pan to like the fax machine. So the movie's pretty up to date on the current generation. It talks about NFTs and innovating Uber. And the movie takes place during a lockdown, which I'm assuming is COVID. It is cool that COVID is in the movie and the directors just aren't ignoring this huge thing that happened in our society. There's a funny shot of in the beginning of the film where Duke was streaming, and they zoomed out from all of his fucking protein powder, while Duke was just literally like spieling out how to be like a stronger man. Obviously, like playing on the insecurities of his fucking audience, and then of course they're gonna want to buy his product. So it was just funny how they made that correlation, I guess, right? I think it's pretty obvious that the fucking onion metaphor is coming from Shrek.
Onions have layers.
It's weird how there's a giant onion on the island. I think everybody at this point, if there's ever another Knives Out movie, they can expect to have a really good cast of actors. And this movie definitely had its fair share with all these fuckers, you know? I gotta say, the beginning scene where everybody was trying to figure out how to open the box that Miles' letter was in, it was really intriguing because at first I was trying to pay attention to how every person opened the box to see how their fate might end as the story progressed. Just a really creative way to do character development. I mean, we really did find out a lot about these characters just from them fucking opening the box, honestly. I wrote this down while I was watching the movie, but it felt like the movie was just always posing questions and trying to figure things out. I mean, we didn't know who Miles was until we got on the island, so we were all just, at least me, I was trying to just figure out who the fuck this guy is. Why do all these people know each other? So it definitely, it caught me. I was interested. I was trying to figure this out. I kind of do like right off the bat how we didn't know exactly the personalities of these characters. I felt like over time we got more of a gist of their character. When I was watching the movie, it helped me figure out who the characters were when Miles was like explaining the whole group and how they're the disruptors. I think that's what the name is. And then we see Andy comes in, or the twin sister Andy, but at the time we thought it was Andy. It says they're all scammers, crooks, and backstabbers. So then it just flips it on its head. So now I'm more confused. And then we see Andy stumbling away after the politician like questions that she's up to something. So basically there was always constant surprises, and you never kind of knew what to believe or not to believe. It was definitely interesting to watch. I talked a little bit about the glass onion, but the house itself, it had some funny moments in it. I mean, when the alarm went off, when Blanche was like smoking the cigarette, that shit was kind of funny. It dropped in the water. I'm pretty sure it got worse too. That shit was kind of funny. When Miles said he only just wants to spend time with his friends and he let everybody go for the weekend, and then a fucking robot just walks by carrying all their bags, I thought that was kind of funny. And then, of course, Serena Williams in the gym. That shit was funny as fuck, and they just kind of blew her off, too. It was pretty obvious that the game that Miles set up wasn't actually going to be the main mystery that needed to be solved in the movie. But while I was watching the movie, it made me think that, like, maybe the death of Andy, Andy's twin, but she didn't actually die, but maybe her death and Duke's death were just set up by Miles, because we didn't really know like the backstory of Andy being backstabbed. I mean, when I first watched like Duke and Miles talk to each other before Duke's death, it really did convince me that like maybe they're working together or something. Maybe they planned that. It was funny, and like Blanche even brought this up on how like when after Blanche figures out like Miles' like game he set up, Blanche begins to say like basically like what you've done by bringing all these people to your island who all like basically hate you and like want to kill you. It's like putting a loaded gun on the table and turning off the lights. And it's funny that Miles like basically did that. For most party mystery movies, this one felt like we were making a lot of progress because there was like an actual detective. Although if I were to rewatch this movie again, obviously it would just be like he's just solving the mystery because we knew it was going behind the scenes anyways. You know, Andy's sister was such a weird thing to just randomly add. I thought maybe Andy was just faking having a twin sister and she was still alive the whole time. It was just so hard to just wrap around my head that Andy's twin sister was playing her that whole time. It just felt a little off how they look exactly the same. It almost felt like the movie was trying to mislead you into thinking that Andy's twin sister actually exists, and Andy's just really just not playing as her twin sister. Definitely the more I was watching the movie, the more it was getting me engaged. Especially after we figure out this huge twist. And then it's like, wow, I didn't notice all of this that was going on behind the scenes. So it makes you, I guess, want to keep paying attention. Well, it's definitely interesting to rewatch some of the scenes where Andy's twin sister and Blanche were working together behind the scenes in the first half of the movie. So it was definitely interesting to see that there was more depth to the character of Whiskey. Because we see Andy's twin sister talking to her, and she talks about why she's with Duke, how his random stuff is going to hold her back in her political career, and how she feels bad for Andy because she read all of her transcripts. I like the scenes where the detective talks about how the group might have killed Andy, and they actually show the scenes of multiple characters, I think actually just trying to kill or killing Andy. And it throws you off guard because you may they're trying to show you a visual representation, but they're actually showing you an event. They're actually showing the characters doing it, so it's kind of misleading. Okay, so the scene where Duke tells Miles to look at the numbers, referring to his YouTube channel or his Twitch. He says, then maybe we can talk about Alpha News. And of course, we learn later that the numbers Duke was talking about was the publicity from Andy's death. So we learn that he's just trying to use how he knows that Miles probably killed Andy to get what he wants, which is Alpha News. It's weird because when we first see the scene, we don't know anything about Andy's death. So it's why would we ever even think of those numbers being somebody's death? Well, Duke was taking the drink that killed him. There were shots of the scientist, the politician, and Whiskey looking really suspicious before he died. So it definitely throws you off guard that Miles probably might have not killed him, When I first watched the movie, I guess I didn't realize that maybe Whiskey thought Andy killed Duke, which is why she tried to shoot her with the harpoon gun. But in my mind, it felt like she was trying to almost protect herself from Andy finding out about the murder, because she seemed just really unhinged, and it makes you think, because we were trying to figure out who actually shot Andy at the end. So I'm thinking it could be Whiskey if she's trying to fucking protect herself from people knowing about Duke's murder. It was really cool to see the hot sauce being used as fake blood. Because when I first saw the scene of the hot sauce being brought up about Miles' hot sauce or whatever, it's it seems kind of irrelevant, and then you just kind of forget about it. But then it actually came up in a really important way. One, to fake tears, and to show it as blood. They say in a movie everything you're supposed to show on screen, every prop thing, it's supposed to have a purpose. But I guess maybe not every prop, but if you're bringing up something, you're talking about something, an object, it should be important later in the film, or it should just be important in the film in general. So it was cool that they did that, and they're not just adding random shit. And it's if I would have paid attention more to them, talking so much about this hot sauce, I could have tried to figure out what might happen, how they might use the hot sauce. Now, Blanche is a really cool character. He definitely stands out as outfit, accent, demeanor, wit, all of these things. He definitely stands out, and he's interesting, and it makes sense because when I first watched Glass Onion, I didn't know this was a sequel to Knives Out. So I was like, damn, who's this fucking character? This guy's lit. This is a franchise, motherfucker. And it turns out he kind of is. And it makes a lot of sense. But that accent is just...
Place in the 80s from a Pakistani real estate billionaire.
Shut up, Blanc. Shut up! Shut up with that Kentucky Fried Foghorn Leghorn drawl.
I don't know. It's just not doing it for me, really. It's cool. Like, I don't know if I really would change it, but it just seems so off to me. Is it just me? I don't know. It seems just so strong. Like, okay. And that fucking model, the washed up model, like, she is just, some of the things she fucking says in the movie are just so unbelievably fucking dumb. Like, with that fucking sweatshop thing, like, did you really genuinely think that a sweatshop is where sweatpants are made?
Please tell me you did not think sweatshops are where they make sweatpants.
But I'm pretty sure that's the only reason why she's still looped in with Miles, because she needs his fucking help because she keeps fucking up. All the information needed to figure out the murder is found on the first night. We didn't know what mystery needed to be solved until the scenes to figure out the mystery were over, which was the first night. I mean, I guess learning the characters and figuring out why they were there would help you figure out the mystery. I think the biggest gripe I really have with this is that, in general, the whole group, excluding, like, Blanche, they really did cause the murder of Andy. They all contributed to her being removed from her company, which eventually led Miles to kill her because she found evidence to try and, like, get ownership back to her company again. And even at the end of the movie, when they knew that Miles killed Andy, they all did nothing. This is a problem I have with the film. I mean, it wasn't going to be Andy's twin sister, and it wasn't going to be Blanche who committed the murder. I mean, the murder could have been anybody, as they were all just trying to protect their careers. I mean, nobody wanted the information that Andy had to get out. There was a possibility that, like, Andy could have, like, faked her death the whole time and just tried to pin her death on, like, the group or Miles. When Andy's twin sister was holding the fucking napkin next to Miles, I was like, dude, there's no way Miles isn't gonna just fucking destroy that, because she's literally about to destroy his whole fucking life, and she just waving it in his fucking face like, please fucking destroy me. Like, it was so obvious that he was gonna fucking, like, destroy it, and he burned it. So, like, I didn't really like how they made, like, Miles end up be the killer, because it was so obvious that, like, I thought they weren't going to make him the killer just because of how obvious it is that he would probably be the killer. Once we figured out how he basically destroyed Andy's whole career, like, and he's probably the most evil one for fucking doing that, and also holding basically all of the other ones on a rope and probably acting the most fake out of all of them. It was obvious, like, it was interesting to figure out how Andy's sister and Blanche solved the mystery, and how they dealt with having no evidence against Miles at the end of the film. Everything Andy's burned all of his friends for was just burned down to the ground. There's this cool scene at the end where Andy's sister talks to Miles, and he says, like, you will be remembered just how the Mona Lisa was remembered, as he thinks he's so great as the Mona Lisa, so he's going to be remembered just as shitty as she was. It's seeing Blanche fucking solve a mystery from all these rich people with diverse backgrounds. It was fun to watch. It gave me, like, James Bond and, like, Indiana Jones vibes. I knew as soon as Blanche was like, there's nothing we can do, we're fucked here. Like, I knew he had something up his sleeve. Like, it was definitely, like, cool to see him be like, fuck, we're fucked here, but then just absolutely fucking give Andy that push to ruin Miles. It was cool. I really liked, like, this main music they kept playing around, like, the title scenes and, like, the mystery scenes. It really just gave me the feeling that something is constantly just needing to be uncovered. Something interesting about this movie is, like, it's not, like, super easy to figure out who the protagonist even is. Because, like, Andy's sister could technically is kind of more of a protagonist than Blanche is. I think Blanche is the protagonist because obviously this is a sequel to Knives Out, and I'm pretty sure the protagonist. My phone falls down and gets clapped here, but basically I was just saying how Blanche was the protagonist in the first Knives Out movie. Now, I talked a lot about Glass Onion, my thoughts on it, but what do I give it out of 10? I give it an 8.2 out of 10. I think it was a really good movie, but ultimately the mystery just didn't do it for me, and we'll talk about that. Now, the Rotten Tomato critic review is a 92%. So a little bit higher than mine, right? The audience score is a 93%. I mean, I don't even fully disagree with giving this film a 9. I mean, the filmmaking was really well done, and the acting was really well done as well. When I compare this movie to other movies that, in my opinion, are 9s, like The Dark Knight Rises and the first Blade Runner, which these movies are similar because they're like trilogies and like sequels to other films. So it's similar in that way. They have the same kind of like strong protagonist, like very skillful protagonist. The character development for both the main characters and the side characters in The Dark Knight Rises and the first Blade Runner were just so much better than the Glass Onion. I'm not even saying that the Glass Onion character development was bad, but I mean, Andy's sister definitely had the most character development. I mean, she seemed like she wasn't very confident going into the mystery. But I don't know, as soon as Andy's sister got to the island, it's like, it seemed like she was doing perfectly fine. And Blanche even said how good she was doing at one point.
Wow, no. You're really good at this. This is interesting stuff about whiskey and motives for both Lionel and Claire.
So it didn't really seem like she grew that much in, trying to fucking solve this mystery or being like a fake actor or whatever. And that's why it was so convincing for me to even to believe that her twin sister might not even exist, because she was just playing like the role of her sister so well, or the role of the role of Andy so well, right? I mean, but when you compare this to like how Batman is fucking shattered in the beginning of the Batman, how his body's falling apart, how he has to overcome that, and then when he finally does, he's fucking beat down to the ground again. His back is broken and he's thrown in this pit he has to climb out from. And if he doesn't make it out of that pit when he climbs out, he fucking dies. So it's like, he's going through these like much more difficult things in my head, and he's just having to overcome much more difficult things. So I don't know. And to more talk about Glass Onion, I guess the problems I had with it was like, the killer was just so obvious. I mean, I get the point of Glass Onion, like they're supposed to have all these layers, but like the answer is clear. But I like the metaphor, but it's just not that entertaining when you actually put it in the story, I guess. And the ending didn't really leave me with anything besides like the Mona Lisa and how that's going to correlate to his downfall, which left me thinking, but not nearly as much as like Blade Runner. When you compare the ending to Blade Runner to Glass Onion, it's like the main protagonist, the Blade Runner, gets fucking saved by the one thing that he was hunting the entire film. It makes you question whether the replicants he was trying to kill were really non-human, non-feeling, and like truly evil. This becomes more clear when he runs away and has a romantic interest with a replicant. There's also this cool theory that I found out. And you can look this up more if you want. It's pretty interesting. I'm not going to go super into depth about this. But there's this theory that, like, the Blade Runner, it was a replicant the whole time. So, yeah, the endings for me in Glass Onion compared to Blade Runner are just... There was nothing really in Glass Onion that got me thinking. I mean, it all just felt like too mashed together. Like, oh, my God, the twin sister got what she wanted. Miles, the big evil antagonist, or the big evil fucking Elon Musk god, who's being taken down. And that's it. There's really nothing else that kind of left me thinking. So that's kind of why I don't give it a 9. Blanche was like already badass. Even Blade Runner, like the first Blade Runner, he was already badass. You could debate like Batman was already badass in Batman Rises too. But like, I felt like what fucking Blanche had to do, it just felt so easy for him. And the only part where I think he really fucked up was like kind of letting Andy's sister get shot. It doesn't really make sense why he was being so careless in the first place. I mean, he knew Miles probably killed Andy, and he knew that the fucking murderer was running around. But when you compare like the Batman Rises, the things he had to do were just super challenging for him, and he really had to change in the film. I mean, in Blade Runner, like he gets pretty fucked up, like fighting these fucking robots. These like one man is going against all these fucking robots with like this little fucking pistol. Like it was crazy. So, and it was super challenging for him, and it was challenging for him mentally because he ends up falling in love with one of them. Now, you've heard why I kind of rate this movie at an 8.2 out of 10. Let's read some critic reviews, and let's see why they've rated it a 92%. This critic refers to Miles Braun's character as like an Elon Musk impersonation, which is kind of why I'm talking about him as Elon Musk. The critic just goes on to explain how fun and like silly the movie was, and I definitely like agree with that. Like there were funny moments, like the guy staying on the beach after Miles said that he wanted to spend the next week alone with just like the gang. The critic talks about how the movie lets you figure out who gets murdered and who the murderer is going to be. But the thing is like there were so many like little things to uncover in the film that would only make sense if you knew who got murdered, which we didn't know through halfway through the film. So this critic gave it a 10 out of 10. So this critic talks about how the costume design reveals details about the characters. The critic also points out the rewatchability of the movie. But honestly, for me, I feel like the rewatchability in this movie would be kind of like stale, knowing who the murderer is. This guy has a YouTube channel. It's kind of funny, but he said the movie was good, but it wasn't that great. I mean, I agree with him, but he gave it a 6 out of a 10, which is kind of low. I mean, it was weird to have an ending where all these characters basically got away with murder. Because, I mean, most of the group members, like, were willing to let Miles, like, murder slide. They all knew he fucking murdered Andy. I mean, the only reason they stood up to him is because they knew their career wasn't going to be in jeopardy because of the evidence they had against him. So this critic talks about how the characters mock each other, which explains why they're all comically exaggerated. Movie reviewers who rate this movie highly talk a lot about the actors, how entertaining their characters were, and how well the actors played their characters, which helped them stand out from each other. For me, this wasn't enough for me to give it a 9, but figuring out who might be a murderer from a group consisting of a politician, streamer, model, scientist, detective, and entrepreneur was definitely fun to watch. This next critic talks about how it was confounding that the movie was only in theaters for 1 week. His reason behind this... I know I didn't just say fucking he, bro. The critic is not a fucking dude. His reason behind this is because the movie is so fun and it should be shared with others, right? And he goes on to say that, like, to save cinema, these kind of movies are actually better to watch in theaters. And that you don't need to watch prestigious films to necessarily save cinema. Save the theaters, right? That's just my point. I feel like people complain that this movie is not really realistic. And Back to the Future fails in these aspects of being realistic, but it's still a great, entertaining movie. The critic talks about how the twists just really aren't that great in this movie. I kind of wish that Andy's twin sister actually maybe didn't exist the whole time and Andy was just playing as her twin sister. That shit would have been lit. The critic talks about how the group of disruptors were trying to go back to the way things were, and they were putting on a smile because they were still processing what happened during the court trial. Definitely reading the critics say that definitely makes me appreciate the acting. These actors were faking acting like something. They were acting like their character, and they were also trying to fake it and go back to the way things were, so they were double faking it in a way, which is, when you think about it, that sounds pretty hard. The critic says that the characters are not just caricatures, and they are well constructed. But I feel like in some moments of the film, they were definitely acting on their like stereotypes for their characters. bring up the point about this earlier, about how the characters are just mocking the type of character that they're playing. For that to work, you have to do these stereotypes for your character. The critic talks about how the cameos are unnecessarily endless. And I don't really agree with that because, I mean, dude, having Serena Williams in the film was definitely kind of funny. And, like, of course, fucking Miles would hire her as, like, a personal trainer. And the critic talks about how he wishes that Blanche would sometimes just cut to the chase. And that makes a lot of sense because I feel like Blanche definitely knew that Miles killed Andy right after he solved Miles' little game. Like, dude, Google reviewers fucking know what time it is, bro. I don't even fully disagree with iMob's review. But I think from now on, if I were to look at a movie review, at least before I watched the film, I would just look at it to see how, like, what the budget for the film was, how technically well made the film is, maybe the expectations for the film, just the resources that went into the film, and how technically good the editing, acting, cinematography is, etc. But also I do like hearing other people's opinions who are really experienced in filmmaking, who are successful in filmmaking. Even people who know a lot of knowledge about it. But even then, I would still form your own opinion before you looked at people who are experienced making, talking about films, and just in general have a lot of knowledge about it. And also, I would watch a movie before you hear other people's opinions, like your friends. Now let's take a look at some YouTube reviews of this movie.
In case you missed it, over vacation, I critiqued Glass Onion, the new Knives Out mystery, on Twitter, and it blew up the world. People are very angry at me because I think it's a stupid, stupid movie. It is stupidly plotted, it is filled with stupid characters and stupid writing, and Rian Johnson's a stupid, stupid man.
A lot of allegations coming out. Fuck your sponsor, by the way.
It is poorly constructed. The characters make no sense. Their motivations make no sense.
I mean, their motivations make sense to me.
And you sort of think that maybe Edward Norton actually will be murdered, and maybe that's what this is going to be about. No, that's wrong. The first 75 minutes of this movie are just a lie.
I don't agree with his how the movie outright lies to us about what the mystery is going to be. I think we all kind of knew that wasn't going to be the actual mystery. Miles' game wasn't going to be the actual mystery that was going to happen.
The entire plot of the film is about a character we did not even know existed for the first 70 minutes of the film.
And that's kind of a problem I had with it.
Miles Braun kills her because she's foolish enough to email him and everybody else a picture of this envelope that has the napkin that's supposed to decode the whole thing.
Yeah, it did sound kind of weird how she fucking sent everybody the email, honestly.
Assume for a second that the cops come upon this without any sort of murder mystery at the island or any of this. The cops come upon Andy's body. And what they do is they perform an autopsy, right? Because she's a suicide, supposedly. And what they find in her system is that she took a heavy dose of sleeping pills and then gassed herself. The first thing they would do is assume, wait, we have a problem here. Why would somebody take a heavy dose of sleeping pills and then gas themselves? The next thing that they would do is they would check her email. Correct? They'd go to all her family members and would find out what is her email password. They would find that she sent an email to everyone saying, look what I found, this red envelope. They would then go and interview all of the people, and everyone would have an alibi except for Miles. And then they would uncover this with basic procedural police work within about 24 hours.
Yeah, but that's kind of like the point of the film. It's not supposed to be the most realistic thing that you've ever seen. If this movie was realistic, let's face it, it would suck.
Andy receives a puzzle box. Why? Why? Miles killed her. Why is she receiving a puzzle box?
Maybe Miles was trying to cover up his murder.
Miles is the only person who has an actual incentive to kill her. Everybody else has a secondary incentive to kill her to protect Miles. But why would they do that? Wouldn't every single character in the film be better off exposing Miles for what he is?
I do agree with his point about that. But the film was so well done, like the cinematography, acting, it almost makes you believe that one of them could have killed Andy, honestly.
We'll get to more on one of the worst films of the year, Glass Onion, in just 1 second. First, it's extremely important to protect your online...
This dude had 2 ads in the middle of this fucking video.
Andy has been keeping, day by day, a magic journal, the magic journal that has all the details of her life, so much so that Helen can play Andy and it will be indistinguishable. You will never know for the first 75 minutes of the film that it is, in fact, not Andy. Question, why would that journal not include details of how the company was founded?
I do agree, and I guess I do agree with his point there. See, this is almost making me change my mind, and this is the problem with looking at reviews.
right? Because that makes a lot of sense. The whole problem I had with Andy's character was that she got to the island and she was already like perfect. So the book is almost an excuse for her to like just already be Andy and like fool the audience that she's Andy for the first half of the movie.
Blanc actually just says at the very end that Miles is a moron.
The key to this entire case, Miles Braun is an idiot.
So this answers all the questions, right? This answers why he sent because he's stupid. He sent her a puzzle box because he's a dum-dum. Why didn't he burn the stupid napkin in the first place?
Because he's an idiot.
Right? Once you say that the main murderer is an idiot, this allows you to do anything except make an interesting film. Because if the main murderer is an idiot and the entire plot is stupid, then why do you need the world's greatest detective to uncode the world's stupidest murderer?
Obviously, Miles is with dealing with the crystal like power thing he's setting up. It's very dangerous, right? So obviously, you kind of do need someone to make sure that that kind of gets extinguished. And Miles has a lot of power for a really bad man. So I guess you do need somebody higher up to make sure that, you know, he gets taken down, right?
The reality is that if somebody did what Miles is supposed to have done, right, launched a rocket company, launched a news company, done all the things that Elon Musk has actually done, that person would have to be, almost by definition, relatively bright. If you read this as a direct analog to Musk, you have to create some sort of story where Elon Musk is not actually the smart person. There was actually some unnamed intersectional woman who was the very smart person, then was chiseled out of her. She was, by the way, brilliant enough to found the company, too stupid to actually encode in her contract anything that protects her in case of a breakup over the future of the company.
If you ever watch the TV show Silicon Valley, where the guy is so smart in his ideas about the company, but he just cannot run it for shit, and it just falls apart countless of times during the show. In the form of entertainment, I can relate it to that. I don't know if I can relate it to real life, but I know in the form of entertainment it works and it makes sense, right?
Because Rian Johnson is a member of the political left, they've made Rian Johnson into the Jordan Peele.
Of course he's a fucking member of the political left. Of course, you right-wing fuck. Of course he is, bro.
Darren Aronofsky's. He's now a director you're not allowed to criticize because he has the proper politics, even though The Last Jedi remains a complete piece of trash.
Wait, he wrote the fucking Last Jedi? Oh, fuck Knives Out. Fuck Glass Onion. No, sir, no. Wait, he fucking wrote Rogue One, though? All right, maybe he worked on it. He did that Scream movie. Does not look like that's the popular Scream movie.
This fucking dude absolutely destroys the first and second fucking Knives Out.
It was a silly, borderline incoherent movie dressed up in a shiny veneer of inventive respectability.
This dude fucking starts off fucking with the same thing that fucking Ben Shapiro started off with. Saying that they're fucking stupid. Everyone who's made the fucking film is just stupid.
Stupid people. Let's be honest, they're basically everywhere in modern culture. Tell me, how's that trilogy coming along, Ryan? But now that he's subverted Star Wars into oblivion, he's since turned his spherical cranium to the murder mystery genre.
This guy talks about how he has problems with Blanche's outfits being ridiculous. And if you were a fucking world-class detective, you can't tell me you wouldn't be dressing like that, bro. Like, you're a fucking sick as fuck. You wouldn't just dress like that.
Benoit Blanc, complete with foghorn leghorn accent and the most obnoxiously flamboyant wardrobe.
And the outfit definitely gives details about the character like that fucking critic said.
The unexpected arrival of Chris Benoit Mont Blanc throws a bit of a spanner in the works because Miles didn't actually invite him. So if he didn't, then who did? Now, you might think that an uninvited guest at an exclusive party like this would be a cause for concern, and that Miles would probably ask him to leave.
I feel like a lot of people can have this argument about why Miles led Blanche and Andy to the island. If I could give it an explanation, a logical explanation, maybe he's just so arrogant. Maybe he thought he can outsmart the two. And honestly, we see him try and do that at the end of the film.
But apparently it's okay because Blanc is so damn famous that even the world's richest man turns out to be a complete fanboy. Because I guess in this bizarro alternate world, amateur detectives are like celebrities or...
I've got the pre-definite detective in the world at my murder mystery party. That is so legit.
Look at the fucking model / fashion designer fucking pet her little assistant, dude. That shit's perfect for their characters, dude.
What if Miles had thought to destroy the napkin with the evidence against him instead of conveniently leaving it in his office for Helen to find later? What if Miles had shot Helen anywhere except the magical bulletproof journal that she was wearing?
This guy is why I bring up about why people think this film isn't realistic. And I guess, dude, honestly, all I gotta say to you, if you want films that are just super realistic and you kind of want to be bored, I mean, I'm not saying that movies that are realistic are really boring, but I'm just saying, like, if that's like your type of thing, then that's cool. But I feel like a lot of people don't really think that much about if a film is realistic or not.
Batista's watching his girlfriend supposedly having an affair with Miles only to be observed by Blanc. Now look at the later version of this exact same scene. Notice how Helen's been added in here when she totally should have been visible before.
I feel like this scene happening like this almost makes the first time that this scene happened almost kind of useless.
I find it funny how, like, well, this guy just knows how to just absolutely fucking destroy a movie.
Vapid, brain-dead morons dispensing their unwanted and uninformed opinions like mentally challenged Delphic oracles.
He just made, like, the decisions that these filmmakers made on this film just sound so fucking bad. I don't know if it's the accent, but he's just way too good at it, bro. I don't know. It's kind of funny.
Watching Glass Onion is like watching someone that's never played chess in their entire lives trying to take on a grandmaster, making up new rules and moves as they go to support the mistaken belief that they actually know what they're doing.
When I first watched his review, it definitely kind of made me feel insecure about my opinion on the movie, but also I still stand strong with my opinion. But definitely looking at all these reviews, it's like, fuck, I don't really disagree with everything they're saying, so it's like I could maybe fluctuate like my score that I gave for this movie. But from doing this video, when you listen to other people's opinions on a movie film, like, it probably will influence your opinion about it. It's hard for it not to, especially when experienced filmmakers are talking about it. It's nice to look at critic reviews and people who have looked at the film that you just watched in detail, really give their opinions like a lot of thought, really just have a lot of knowledge about the film and why they feel certain ways about how this film is good or bad and why certain aspects didn't do it for them, because they've really given it a lot of thought. And you're probably not going to do that for every film that you watch. I would honestly love to do this for another movie. It's crazy to, like, review a movie, have a strong opinion about how you would rate it, and then look at the critic reviews and see how they kind of match up.
So in conclusion, I would probably watch a movie before you look at the critic reviews or listen to anyone else's opinion. Because as you can see, my opinion differed from the critic reviews and even the audience reviews for Rotten Tomatoes. People argue that Rotten Tomatoes isn't reliable.
Rotten Tomatoes is so unreliable for anything.
But my opinions were drastically different from those two YouTube movie reviews that I watched on Glass Onion.